for all the right reasons. I consider myself to be an entrepreneur. I am a founder of Pink Trumpet LLC, as Charnay mentioned. I have a business that is really grounded in getting good ideas off the ground. One of the things I do on the side through Pink Trumpet is provide assistance, career assistance, namely in the form of helping people reformat and redesign their resumes and LinkedIn profiles. So before I get into today's conversation, I want to make it a conversation, right? So I want to lay out some ground rules. We want this to be, well, I want this to be interactive. So as we get started on certain sections, namely the section that'll be focused on giving you the rundown or anatomy of a resume, please feel free to use the Q&A feature. I will be paying attention to that. So if you drop your questions in there, it'll be a signal for me to make sure that I am actively engaging and making this interactive for you as well. We also have some fun giveaways lined up. So for the first 2 people who joined, we do have something special for you. We're going to announce it at the end, so stay tuned. We also have another giveaway baked into the presentation. So we'll have a poll and some fun Q&A stuff. The lucky winner will get a 45-minute free consultation with me, where I will work with you to revamp 5 bullets for your current existing job or last role. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So I love leading with this quote right here, right? You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. This is so important, especially in the context of today, when it comes to your resume. Even though we live in a digital age and in a digital world, having that resume is so important because it is the employer's opportunity or chance to really build their first impression about you. So my goal throughout this presentation is to make sure that when we are done, you leave here feeling more confident about different tools and strategies and questions, quite frankly, that you can ask yourself in order to pull out your professional wins, translate them, and really make your resume shine. I want to walk you through the importance and purpose of a resume and why it's really important to have a knockout resume. Then, one of my favorite parts of today's conversation will be the 4 solid tips or principles that you can apply to your current resume bullets in order to just kind of give them a refresh. So what's the purpose of a resume? Well, let me get into what a resume is not. A resume is not a sheet of paper that lists your job duties. If this is something that you are doing, I'm glad you're here because we are gonna dispel that myth and really talk to you about what a professional resume is. And what it is, it's something that's similar to a brag sheet, more or less, right? It's really your marketing tool. It's the tool that you will use to bring the best employers to you to say, walk me through this great document, it's CV that you've put together. How did you accomplish all of these great wins? So a resume is a document that really is a professional brag sheet listing all of your wins. So it's not just a standard flat sheet of paper that lists your duties. There's one really important takeaway from this. It's that your resume does not stop at listing your duties. So here are the different types of resumes that we have. There are so many, but I'm going to highlight 3 for purposes of this presentation. And the way that I want to introduce you to the 3 different types of resumes will be through these 3 different types of lovely people I've put together, right? So our first person here is Rich. So Rich is someone who, he doesn't have a lot of gaps in his resume. Whenever he left one job, he went straight into another job. It's a pretty clean resume in the traditional sense, right? So someone like Rich might have a chronological resume where they are going to lead with their most recent job, and then They will end that resume with the job that they've had all the way in the past. So it just kind of walks the story or tells the story and walks the employer through your professional history in a very chronological way. Then we have someone like Mary, who, quite frankly, I kind of identify with, right? So Mary is someone who's had lots of different experiences. Some might say her resume might be a little what they call non-traditional or a little less linear, right? So Mary worked in the banking industry for 3 years. Then she decided, you know what, I'm going to take a break. Then she said, I'll work on my own business as a financial planner. She took on a few part-time jobs. An employer might look at Mary's resume and say, huh, there's a couple of spots here and there, a couple of gaps. Someone like Mary may benefit from having a functional resume. So a functional resume, just to give you an example, let's say Mary has 3 skills that she wants to highlight. The first skill is operations. So she may list a couple of jobs, or sorry, a couple of bullets underneath that skill that cover a range of roles, right? So unlike a chronological resume where each job is associated with the bullets under that role, with a functional resume, you can have a resume where the core skills really stand on itself and you can put bullets that come from different jobs. So underneath each core skill. And then at the very bottom of a functional resume is where you'll kind of list out all the places where you've worked. An infographic resume, maybe that's something that we're a little less used to, but it's a lot more colorful, right? It'll have more graphic design elements to it. So instead of having just text, it might be good for someone like Kevin to use an infographic resume. Now, Kevin is someone who has worked with graphic design firms. He's supported social media management. So an infographic resume might be more intriguing and might be more relevant, quite frankly, for his industry. So let's get into 4 principles for preparing a resume with SAS. Now, I love acronyms and I wanted to make this fun and engaging, right? So SAS stands for specific, accurate, succinct, and scrupulous. Now, remember I said I'm your hype woman with a thesaurus. So scrupulous just means don't forget to spell check. Now, I'm just going to kind of take a few minutes, not a lot of time, and just walk you through the importance of each of these words. And then I'll get into how we are going to use a live example for this. Specific. So when we say specific, basically it's another way of saying make sure you quantify and really drill down in your resume bullets where you can. It's important to add a layer of specificity that can really help the employer or person reading your resume really understand what it is exactly that you did and how. So when I say specific, most of the time I'm referring to adding quantities and quantifying your wins wherever relevant. Sometimes we can't always do that, but wherever relevant, right? So accurate. Is what I'm saying true? Is it believable? As much as we want to, fluff up our experience or make ourselves sound really, really good, we always want to make sure that whatever we are putting in that resume is in fact accurate. And that if we are asked to furnish anything, we can provide proof of that bullet point. Succinct. We do not want to have a resume bullet point that is 4 or 5 lines. We want to make sure that whatever we are putting in that bullet point is easy to understand, easy to digest, and that you don't have to take more than a minute to read it, right? Scrupulous. Again, don't forget to spell check. So we are going to get into an actual client that I had as an example, and I'll walk you through how to prepare a resume with SAS. So here's my client. I changed a couple of details like the name and other identifying things, but wanted to have someone that you can actually pinpoint this experience to and use as an example, right? So who is Regina? She's a woman with a 10+ year career in sales, mostly in the auto industry. She loves working with people, loves managing teams. She has worked as an assistant cook in the past, in her past life, and she was also a teaching assistant before diving into a career in sales. So here's Regina's resume. So again, I changed and hid some information, but she is someone who, as I mentioned, has a strong career in sales. She has worked or was working at the time when I worked with her. We didn't list her full company, but she was a manager. Prior to that, she was a sales consultant. And as I mentioned, she was a teaching assistant, and then she was an assistant cook. So this is kind of an overview of who she is. So we're going to do a quick poll. And I know I talked a little bit about the different types of resumes we can have. Now, I would love for you all to answer this question. What type of resume do you think we should use for Regina, given what you know about her? We'll give it about a minute. Maybe a little less. Okay, let's see how everyone answered. You all said functional resume. Yes, okay. Now, let me do my reveal. So Regina and I worked together and we created a chronological resume. Now, the reason why we did not create a functional resume was because Regina wanted to go into a career in sales. She wanted strictly to go into a career in sales. So what we decided to do was to eliminate her past experiences because we felt like her experience as a teaching assistant and cook would not be relevant to her resume. So we moved those experiences off and we decided to really draw out her experience in the first two positions that she had, which were more focused on sales. So we ended up making it a chronological resume, but very, very close. We went back and forth between whether it should be functional or chronological, but we went with chronological. And I'll show you that resume. But before I show you her resume, I want to get into what makes a good resume. So we're going to do the anatomy of a good resume, but we're going to use the structure that we had with Regina's resume. So I'm going to talk to you about the different components of a resume using Regina's as the structure, right? So we have the heading, then we have the summary section, and then of course we have the bullets that will highlight your wins. And then last but not least, we have your education section. Now, this is by no means sort of like a standard for how to design a resume. This is just the structure that came with Regina's resume. And that's how I wanted to walk you through the anatomy of a good resume. So, but we're going to break down each section, right? So let's start with the header. In Regina's resume, she had the address, she had her number, she had the email, first and last name. Well, we decided, let's just use the name, email, phone number, and LinkedIn profile. Now, in some cases, you can use the location of where you are based. I do not recommend using a full address. I really recommend only using a city and state if you do feel compelled to put the location. You really don't have to, but if you do, you should use the city and state, which is actually what we might have ended up doing with Regina's resume. One other thing I want to say about the header here is that with your LinkedIn profile, you want to be careful with the link that you actually use. So there's a way to customize the link to your LinkedIn profile so that you can clean it up a little bit, because you'll notice if you go on your LinkedIn, you may have like a long profile name after it. There's a way to customize it so that it looks a little clean and it's ready to be plopped into your resume. So the next section I want to talk about is your professional summary. So this section is important because this section is also where you can add in a couple of skills and really make yourself shine in that profile, right? It's where you answer the question, what can you uniquely do to solve your employer's problems? This is also an important section because when we talk about ATS systems, or in most cases today, employers will scan your resume through an electronic system. This is where you can put in a lot of the keywords that will make your resume stand out. So having a clear professional summary is very important. And it's also something that you can translate over into your LinkedIn profile as well. Another good note that I put here is for people who are looking for jobs, a really good point is to, find your ideal job description and take some language from there and incorporate that in your professional summary or highlight section. So now we are really getting into the meat, or what I call the meat of a good resume, which are the bullet points, right? And so one of the tools I want to give you is the CAR method. So we talked about earlier using a resume or creating resume bullets with SAS, making sure that they are specific, accurate, succinct, and scrupulous. But another tool that you can use is the CAR method. Basically, the CAR method says you should make sure that your resume bullets incorporate three things: the challenge, action, and result, and that it should kind of follow that format. So let's try this live though. I know it's one thing for me to be throwing all of this information at you, but what does this really look like in practice, right? So we took Regina's resume and pulled this section. And the bullet that we want to analyze is that very last bullet there that says, construct methods to increase customer service. Okay, that's great, Regina, but what does that really mean exactly, right? What was a challenge, action, result if we want to use that CAR method? Some basic questions that I also had for Regina were things like, what methods? What exactly? How did you increase customer service? By how much? Whenever you use words that deal with quantifying, you want to make sure you put in by how much, or show the increase exactly. So remember that SAS tool that I gave you, or acronym, I should say. One of the questions we can ask to make sure that the new bullet you design, or that we will unveil, is, does our new bullet have some SAS, right? Is it specific? Is it accurate? Is it succinct? Is it scrupulous? Did you spell check? So here is the new bullet that we came up with for Regina. We said, all right, I know you went and you constructed methods to increase customer service. After pulling some jewels out of her, we said, you actually generated over 10 million in sales by developing and implementing targeted customer service training, resulting in a 10% increase in customers. This was big, this was huge, but it was hidden underneath that bullet. So with a little bit of SAS and the CAR method, we were able to translate this into a big win. So let's do another pause. For this pause, I want you all to drop your answers in the chat. Which of the following should come first in a resume? Is it education or is it experience? Okay, I see experience. Experience. Which of the following should come first? So the answer here is that it depends, right? So it's a little bit of a trick question, but education typically comes first. However, most of the people I work with and most of the resumes that I've done, we usually put experience at the bottom. And the reason for that is mainly because most of the people I work with have graduated 5+ years ago. So my piece of advice, my general rule of thumb around this is if you have graduated recently, 2, 3, 4 years ago, please list your education first. But if you've graduated 5+ years, consider moving it to the very end of your resume. The reason for this is by doing it that way, you really appear to focus more on your experience, right? That's the thing that you want the employer to focus on and really draw their attention to. Sometimes for people who don't have that much experience, maybe they just graduated, it might make more sense to lead with the experience to kind of help the employer understand and really frame your resume around the fact that you are a recent grad. So that's there. So now we are going to get into how to talk about your wins during COVID. So we spent some time talking through how to list resume bullets, what types of questions you should ask to really create more detailed, more impactful resume bullets. Now, I want to share some of my experiences that I've had working with clients, specifically during COVID-19, and how they've translated and talked about their wins. So what I did here was I created different categories based on what I've been hearing from my clients. So one of the things I wanted to say though, before I get into these categories is going back to what a resume is, right? Remember, I said a resume lists your professional wins. It's like your brag sheet. One thing I always encourage people to do, whenever someone gives you a kudos, whenever someone acknowledges you for a job well done, get that Google Doc out, send that email to yourself, really just keep track of this because it's hard and it can be difficult to sort of remember things when you are ready to reapply for jobs. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of all of these things, no matter how big, how small. Don't worry, I'm your hype woman with the thesaurus. I got you. But you want to make sure that you are keeping a running list of these things. So now, without further ado, these are some of the themes and focus areas that some of the people I've worked with have listed on their resume in light of COVID-19. So now that we live in this virtual environment, I call it training. A lot of people have been called on the job to help figure out how to train staff on how to navigate Zoom or WebEx or insert whatever virtual platform you use, right? So here's an example of a bullet that I did with a client related to training and related to this topic. So we said, hey, you didn't just run Zoom training sessions. No, you codified operating procedures for conducting virtual meetings and events on Zoom. Yes, you did that. And what this basically means is, yes, you did trainings, but you also said, here's how to do this in the future. She put together, I wouldn't call it a manual, but she sent an email out after and just saying, this is how I want to make sure we do these trainings in the future for the next person that comes and has to do that function, right? Here's another area. that I'm seeing a lot with COVID-19. In this virtual environment, again, it's becoming increasingly important to not make people feel like they are excluded or really alone. And so with one client I worked with, she was tasked with creating events, virtual events. But what we said was, well, actually, when you really sit down and take stock of everything she did through what she shared, we came up with this bullet. We said, okay, she coordinated monthly meetings to foster interconnectedness and a healthy work culture. So that's just an example underneath that focus area. Lastly, but not least, lots of people have been called on, whether it's formally or informally, to be the DE&I expert in their workplace. So with one client in particular, one of the things that she did, out of many, but one of them was that she advocated for the release of the organization's public statement acknowledging its commitment to DE&I. And so at the time, we didn't know whether or not the organization actually went with her statement and, listened to her. And later on, we learned that they did. So that is a bullet that I actually encouraged her to update later on as well. So here are some other formatting tips related to, oh, I see a Q&A. Oh yes, Darlene, what is DE&I? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. So a lot of people in light of basically more and more organizations were starting to pay attention to racism. And so a lot of organizations, in response to horrific events like George Floyd, they said, let's go and let's write a statement about this. And in some cases, some organizations went and they hired the DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion experts to come and talk to their organizations, lead trainings, and things of that nature. So yes, great question. And feel free, everyone, to just drop in other questions. Sometimes I know I can talk a lot and I can be a little fast paced, but I will always stop for questions. I love answering questions. So this section right here is just dedicated to some other ways and reminders of how you can format your resume, right? So please keep it to 1 or 2 pages. Honestly, I always just stick to the 1 page. Lots of employers, in my experience, don't really like spending a lot of time on resumes. And so keeping it to 1 page, making it concise, will be music to their ears, and will be something that continues to make sure that, you're picked up, your resume is picked up and is looked at. One other really important tip here is to use standard fonts, right? Nothing crazy, nothing like cursive or anything like that. You want to use fonts that people can look at really easily and just read through your resume. Now, if you're doing an infographic resume, maybe I'll say you can disregard this a little, but for the most part, use standard fonts in your resume. Make sure that you maintain a good balance between white space and text, right? You don't want to have a resume that's too cluttered with text. And at the same time, if you do have a resume where you're worried that, well, I don't have that much experience and I don't want to highlight all of this white space, there are ways around that. So don't even worry. Lastly, but certainly not least, always PDF your resume. The reason why this is so important is because, remember my quote earlier, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, right? So if you send a Word document of your resume, what could happen is it might look a little wonky, right? Sometimes with Word document, you can save it in different versions. You can save it in like 1997 to 2003, or you can save it as a docx. I might open that and it might look totally different on my laptop or on my computer or on my phone if I open it on my phone. But if you save it as a PDF, it'll always look one way. And so you always want to do that with your resume. So here are some other features. You remember with Regina's resume, we highlighted a couple of sections. These are some sections that we did not include. Well, we included one of them in the big reveal that I have for you, but these are some other sections that you can add or consider adding to your resume as well, right? Now, depending on the job, you can figure out what makes the most sense. But we have a skills section, we have awards slash achievements, we have a language section, and then we have community service. Then we have hobbies. So I always get so excited because I am not someone who's into like home remodeling, but I feel like this is the closest that I can get to that in this industry, showing you the before and after of the resume, right? So with Regina's before, as I showed you, she kind of had her experience, education. We didn't have a skills section, right? So we said, Regina, you are amazing. We have to amp up your profile. We got to add a skills section. We, as I mentioned earlier, we decided to get rid of that experience as a teaching assistant and assistant cook. And we really went in on her current, at the time, current experience working at Enterprise Holdings. If you notice in her former resume, we couldn't tell that she got a promotion, right? But now we can tell she got a promotion. We can tell that prior to that, she was also a sales consultant. So we really just decided to bring sass, right? So we added specific bullet points. We added bullet points that were accurate, that were succinct. The bullets really are no more than 2 lines. You can say each bullet in one breath. And we made sure that we spell checked, that it was scrupulous. So she was really excited and really happy about this turnout for the resume. So now I want to share some resources with you that I used. So the first that I want to focus on, there are 2 resources, and I will be sure to send out a resource one-pager that has this information because you can't see the links exactly underneath the first resource that I will share. But this is related to action verbs for your resume, right? You want to make sure that you're not using the same old words when you highlight what it is and when you lead with what it is that you did, right? So earlier I made a joke and I said, you didn't just assist in whatever function you did, you orchestrated. You went from assist to orchestrate. That can really leave a powerful impression in someone's mind when they read that bullet and see how you led with the right verbs. So having the right verbs throughout is really, really important. Next, I want to talk to you about resume templates. Resume templates are my favorite part of the resume redesign process. It's where I show you that before and that after, and you feel like, wow, I just demoed, demolished, and then came into your resume and redesigned something that is beautiful. But the great thing about resume templates is that they are free. So you can also do this and take advantage of doing this for your own resume. There is Canva. You can do this on Canva with a free account. There is resume.io. You can just Google that and you'll get the resource there. Templates.office.com. They also have some pretty good resume profiles and templates. And my favorite is probably Fresumes. There's lots of fun different resume templates there. I actually just used one for a client just now. So the other tool that I want to get into, this is probably my favorite tool. There's another tool that's similar. There are so many tools that are similar. This is called the VMOC tool. So the VMOC tool is essentially a diagnostic, right? So what you do with the VMOC tool is you can upload your resume into the system and it spits out what you see right here, the image that you see right here. And this is actually what I used with Regina's resume. So this was her before. So when we used the VMOC tool, it said, your impact is, you're on track. You're not really there yet, right? It highlighted some resume bullets that needed to be improved. it highlighted a lot actually of other bullets that needed to be better. 0 looks good. So the thing about using diagnostic tools is that you have to kind of, they're not 100%, 100%, 100%. But that being said, there was still a lot of good insights that using this tool allowed us to get. And what I want to highlight is the after. So after working with Regina, using this VMOC tool, we plugged it in. We said, oh, wow, it went from highlighting 14 impact bullets. Now we were at 30. It still said 12 could be a little better. So what I did was we went through each of the bullets with Regina and we saw where, well, maybe this isn't really totally accurate. And oh, here's where we could change some things. Now, what I also want to highlight is outside of the VMOC tool, there are plenty of others, right? There's something, and I'll be sure to put this in the one-page resource doc that I referenced earlier, but there's something called, I believe it's Sky Scanner or Job Scanner. It's probably Job Scanner. But what it does, it's very similar. It kind of takes your resume, you upload it, and then it compares it to other job descriptions in that similar vein. Of course, you feed it the job description, but it's also a very similar tool. The thing about tools like this is that you do end up having to pay for it. When I work with my clients, this is of no charge to them. And I really love using these tools because it's such a tangible way to see the impact of the before and after with your resume, right? So speaking of working with clients, this is how we can work together, right? So one of the ways is I can offer you a free 20-minute phone consult about how to improve your resume. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that there is going to be, and I'll get to the winner at the end, I'm not going to announce it yet, but Chardonnay, our wonderful host, is going to help me announce the 2 winners. But before we do, one of the things I mentioned is that one person will get a free 45-minute consult with me where we will revamp 5 of your resume bullets, right? And so we are going to award that to the very first person who answered our second question. So I have your name, so I will make sure that we are going to reach out to you. So very excited about that. And so I'm going to work with you to revamp 5 of your resume bullets. Now, here's another way that I traditionally work with people, right? I call it the Resume Deluxe Revamp. So all of these great things, we have a 1-hour phone consultation in order to understand your job search strategies. What does your resume currently look like? I take all of that and then I design touch points midway through the process to kind of continue showing you the after version of your resume. We'll have 3 hours of phone support. I'll give you a final resume with up to 3 revisions. And then that really interesting VMOC tool that I showed you, that also comes with the package. Now, obviously, since you all are so amazing and are taking time out of your Tuesday evenings to spend time with us today, this is something that I typically charge $250. I will make this $200. So I'm really excited to be able to offer that opportunity. One of the things, sorry, just seeing this now. So Anisha, just want to shout you out as the person that will win that free 45-minute consult with me, where I will revamp 5 of your resume bullets for your current role or your latest role. So very excited to work with you, Anisha, and I'll be reaching out to you after. So this concludes our presentation. I just want to thank you all so much. I want to remind you to please keep a professional brag sheet. Seriously, it is so important. And lastly, definitely not least, always keep it sassy. Now, for those first 2 people who joined us, who were the first 2 people to join the call, and this webinar, we are going to provide you with one $5 Amazon e-gift card. So very excited about that. And yes, I will hand it over to our lovely host, Charnay, who is going to talk to you a little bit more about NAACP and the benefits of becoming a member of this wonderful organization.
Yes, thank you so much, Hawa. I truly appreciate your time tonight. Um, Lovely, lovely, lovely presentation. And like I said, guys, I literally gave you my special sauce to securing jobs and different opportunities. She really is awesome. And I've taken some notes down myself. So I'm happy for the free consultation. So I want to do some quick housekeeping. Like I said, this is the Camden County East NAACP branch, along with its WIN committee, Women in the NAACP. We are hosting a series of events. This is our second one, but we wouldn't be able to do this. We wouldn't be able to do any of our civil rights work without members. And we all know, with all of the current events going on in the world, that the pandemic does not stop racism. The pandemic does not stop inequality, whether that's, you know, racial equity, financial equity, gender equity. These challenges are still here and they still remain within our community. And membership is truly the lifeline of our organization, which is one of the oldest civil rights organization in the country. So you can become a member for only $30 annually. And you can also, if you're a member, become a member of the WIN committee. You can join us. You can help us with different events, help us bring resources to the community. That's an additional $10. Just visit our website, ccenaacp.org. Click on the join, donate, and all of the information will be there to you. And, we really, really, really value um, your membership and participation. Next slide, our branch meetings. We just finished up our March branch meeting yesterday, but we will have an April branch meeting, and we meet every third Monday of each month at 7:30 p.m. If you would like to receive the special Zoom invitation for our monthly meeting, please again visit our website. Click on the subscribe button. It's right at the bottom of every single page on our site. And put in your email, and we'll send you the link. Again, you have to subscribe to our list so we know to send you the special Zoom link. But we would love to see you there at our Camden County East branch meeting. And finally, I would like to tell you about our scholarship. We have a lovely opportunity for high school students and current undergraduate students who reside in Camden County or go to school in Camden County. They can receive a scholarship from us. All they have to do is apply. It's not rocket science. It's a pretty straightforward application. And we really want to encourage our youth to apply. The deadline is coming up. It's April 30th. So if you know a young person who needs help getting to college, or most importantly, staying in college, please have them visit our website. Again, that's ccenaacp.org/scholarships. All the information will be there. And then, last but not least, we have to talk about how we fund our scholarships. And, the pandemic has really thrown our organization for a whirlwind, particularly our branch. We're used to having in-person events, in-person fundraising. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, safety is first. So that means that we can't meet and we can't have our fundraisers. And so that puts us in a tough position. And unfortunately, you know, funds aren't coming in, but our kids still need to get to college. They still need to stay in college. We still want to support the community with different initiatives. So the scholarship committee has put out a really phenomenal fundraiser this month for Women's History Month. They had an artist who donated hand painted images of Madam Vice President Kamala Harris and images of Shirley Chisholm and Harriet Tubman. And, we put them on various products and created a store on Redbubble. You can visit this store. The link is right there. Or you could visit our Facebook page and get the link to our store as well. Or you can visit our website. We've put it up pretty much everywhere. We want you guys to buy masks, journals, pillows, mugs, water bottles, you name it, you can get it. And all proceeds will go to the Paul C. Harris Senior Scholarship Fund. And that, my friends, wraps up my portion of housekeeping. However, I would be happy to stay on the line if anyone has any additional questions for Ms. Hawa Muhammad. Again, I would like to thank Hawa for tonight's presentation, and I would like to thank all of you that stuck it out with us this Tuesday evening. We really, really appreciate your support. Please don't forget to like us on Facebook and check out our branch meetings every third Monday. Take care.